we're going to be making a feastable out of yellow cedar. This little block here is a nice little piece. It's 2 inches by 10, and you can see I've put on the center lines through the top and the side, and I've also put on the bottom. And also on the bottom, I've created an outline of where I want the actual bottom of the feastable to go. So we're going to actually have tapered sides, and where this square is, that's the actual bottom piece of it. And we'll carve away both ends in this part at the top so it tapers on the sides, and we'll taper on the ends here as well. What I'll do now is draw on a profile of the top of the feast bowl. I'll probably just draw it on one side, trace it, and put it onto the other, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side as well. After I've traced on all the lines, so that goes all the way around this block of wood, I'm just going to kind of, I've measured out 2 1/4 at the top here from the edge on either side, and that way it's sort of the beginning of the bowl part. There'll be a nice little edge to it, to the top of the tray here, and then it's going to be carved in. So I'm just marking those about 2 1/4 inches. Just gives me an idea of where to eye it out. And then what will happen is about probably give it about 1/2 inch, maybe around, maybe 1.5 inches, kind of rim that goes around it. So we can just do 1.5 inches or 3/4 inch, sorry, all the way around. Then we can start digging the bowl out at that point. So just mark two lines on either side at 1/4 inch, and then you can just line those ones up with your ruler, and you'll have the inside of your bowl shape, just as a rough guide. So you'll see that it comes together just like this. So what you'll do, you'll start excavating all this out here, and this part will just be the rim. Towards the end we'll round these corners off, but we'll get to that point when we get there. But so that's the top of your bowl. That's where we're going to start taking out the middle of your tray. You can see the profiles are already on there. We'll carve all this away here. We'll carve this away here. And then as you're looking at your bowl this way, you'll see this is going to taper from this edge to the bottom of your bowl. So that way it has a nice movement through the whole piece. It's really about trying to keep it symmetrical. At this point, what we're going to move to is to gouges in the mallet. We'll move outside to the carving table, and we'll start taking it out that way. And what I'll do is probably get the outside shape first. So I'll do both of these sides, both the ends and both the sides here, and then we'll flip it over and we'll start taking out the middle here. Okay, we're just about to start on the bottom. I usually start on the bottom before I take out anything in the center. You can see we've, as I said, we've marked off the bottom shape of our bowl. And then these pieces here are just going to come out on the side here. Just we'll get a nice swooping face to them. And just to start off, you can use a couple different things. You can use a chisel, a number 5, or maybe a number 3. 3 one's a little bit more flat, and it won't tear up the corners. Sometimes these chisels, if you're using a flat chisel, if they're using them right up against the wood, sometimes it just tears off a little bit on the sides. Either way, since we're getting to remove this, you can practice with a couple different ones to see how it's removing the wood. So I put it onto the carving table. I've got it locked in with an F clamp. The top of my table again is made of rubber. If you're using it on a regular wood table, you can put down some of this cupboard liner, and it's like a rubber mat, and it will just keep your project in place. If you put it right on the wood surface, it's going to slide around you even if you clamp it down. I would recommend clamping it to a table and just having both hands, and that way your project's not going to move anywhere anyhow. And you're feeling good about things, and you feel like you have some confidence in carving and using some of the chisels, You can actually put it in your lap, of course with a leather apron for safety. Since I have a carving table, it's a little bit easier to maneuver. I'm not thinking about too much more stuff than just the chisel and the mallet and going on my project. So said you can use a chisel, takes out the wood quite nicely, and with a few swipes you've started taking out that edge part. You can use like a number 3. It's nice, a flat number 3, and you'll see that it won't actually catch on the corners. Either works. They're both really good for just removing that wood that you need to. And you can use that both ways. So again, what I'm using is a polyurethane mallet. It's a 18-ounce mallet, I think. Maybe 20, maybe a 20-ounce mallet. You get them 12, 16, 18. They're nice quiet mallets. Some other ones made from the wood, you'll just hear them a little bit louder, but they all work really well. See, this project can come out pretty quick just with the roughing. We've taken off the ends now, and then what we want to do is we want to extend those lines that you put on there on the bottom, because what we're going to do is we're going to taper the bowl from the ends to this end here. So I just wanted to just get that line back on there. We'll put our center line back on afterwards as well. And what we're going to do here now is kind of deal with the top. So I measured out all my forms or my lines in the beginning, just so I get a sense of where the actual we're going to start digging out the bowl from. So now I've extended those lines to the edges here on both sides and on the ends, on the sides, and I can start actually just chopping away the top of this piece of wood. That way we can get this nice shape in here. So the bowl is gonna, rather than being flat across, it's gonna have a little bit of a nice bend to it. Okay. So there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can use it by chisel. You can do your bent knives if you want. If you're careful enough, you can put it on the bandsaw and cut it this way. What I'll do is I'll do it by hand, but what I'll do is I'll put in some cut marks. I'll put in maybe 1 or 2 cut marks into it, and I'll use a back saw just to cut along that center line, because you're gonna actually, when you start chiseling it out, you're gonna work from the high end to the low end, just like in any other project that we've worked on. So I've got a back saw. I'm going to cut down the center, maybe about halfway on either side, and that way when I'm chopping it, makes it a bit easier than trying to chop it and meet it up in the center. This way the mark's in there. Pretty simple. So we've tacked it down, and now we're just going to take a chisel and we're just going to work on along this line that we've drawn on the side here. I want to get that nice swooping motion in there. So I'll just start up from this edge up here, start moving this way towards the center. Again, starting work from high, working down to low. That way it won't split on me and it comes out easier. So the top comes off relatively easily once you put those cut marks in there and you have a bit of a guide. And when we get down towards the end here, what you want to do is you want to make sure you meet up here in the center line. So you see this little lip here that we've created with the saw. So it's just sort of slowing down your chops, maybe making them a little bit smaller. And you can certainly work a couple different ways. You can work from the back here and go all the way through. You might find the piece of wood will chip up, just like it's done there. If you're not comfortable with that, that's completely fine. You can move to the front or to the end of that cut, so a little bit closer to the center, and just put in a little relief cut, just like this, so without when you move your chisel back, when you're cutting out, it's going to actually stop at that cut. See how it's kind of just stopped there? And that way this piece won't go flying. So a couple different ways depending on how you're comfortable with it. Again, I'll show you that again. So we can put a little cut mark in there. Just a little chisel mark, that way it's already to the center here. And then you can move your chisel back. And just nice light taps. You don't need to take a whole big chunk out, just a little tight, light little taps. And you can see I'm just taking a little bit off. I'm not trying to go deep. You can see that little cut there's just a kind of skimming the top of it. So once you feel the chisel start cutting, just like I've done there, you want to lock your wrist and your hand on the chisel and just maintain that plane that you've started cutting, and that way you know this thing's not moving up and down and creating havoc with your cut. Once you feel it cut, lock your wrist, light taps, and you'll get nice little chunks out of it, nice little chips. And that's what you're looking for. You don't need to. You can hear I'm not really trying to really hit it hard with the mallet. I'm just light taps. You're controlling the cut with your wrist and with the planing angle of the chisel. Takes a little bit of practice if you've never done it before, and once you do it, helps in the carving, because you'll find that you don't need to exert so much energy. Another thing, you don't need to make it really super clean right there, right in the center. You're going to draw all your lines back on so that you can start actually excavating the middle of this bowl. But it goes pretty quick, this section here. Just roughing it out so that you get to all the planes. And you'll see we've done the back here. We've drawn on our guidelines here for where the bevel's going to go on the side of the bowl here. And then you can use all these markers here, and you can draw the center of your bowl back on and put all your center lines back on, and then we'll start taking out the middle. Okay, so after I put on all the lines with my tracing paper and I got it to all four sides of this corner, we can go ahead and start taking out some of this material in the middle of the tray. So it's just going to be a shallow dish is what it's going to be. And to take out the centerpiece is what I'm going to use. I'm going to use my mallet, and I'm going to use an 8L 30. So again, when we're looking at tools and these gouges, 8L is the type of blade that we have, and you can see it has it's the same shape to the one we used for the canoe bowl. It has a bit of a curve into it, and that way when you're carving down to the bottom, you can actually move your tool back and forth to get at the bottom of the tray. And the 30 number there is the blade width is actually 30 millimeters from end to end. Nice little knife, removes materials quite quickly. And what we've done, we set it up on the carving table, and we have put it again with the F clamp, so it's not moving anywhere. That way I can use two hands nice and comfortably start removing some of that material. So we'll just start them from this end and work towards the center. Now some of these trays, the idea for me for this tray is to get everything nice and round in there. I don't need to go straight down where I've cut this line. I want a nice shape that goes a little bit round on the bottom. So these are ideal, these gouges are ideal for that part. When I get close to the edge, I'm just going to tip it on its edge just a little bit from flat to a little bit on the edge. And that way I can start creating that nice round shape in there. Another thing you might see, your cut might not all go all the way through, and that little piece of wood might not come up. It's totally fine. If your tendency is to cut it all the way through, you might actually split that piece of wood straight across, and then you'll be carving a little bit deeper than you need to. I just leave it there, so when I flip my bowl around, I know that it's going to come out with the other side. So just be careful not to pry out that piece of wood. Sometimes you'll run into situations where you've hit the mallet and hit the gouge with your mallet, and it gets stuck underneath what you're trying to do. The original or the initial sort of reaction is to grab that and pry it up, or pry it side to side to loosen it out, and sometimes that will damage the edge of the gouges. So your best thing is just to kind of make small little movements and then try to pull it straight out that way. That way you don't damage the ends of these gouges. They're pretty expensive, and sometimes if you chip them or break them off, it's hard to get them back to the shape that they originally are. Okay, so we've done the top of it, we've done the bowl and the edge. Now we're just going to take this piece off here. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually taper the ends so it's thicker on the top side than it is the bottom side. So we're just going to use that as the guide, the top edge as a guide, and this line here as the guide, so that when we're cutting it, we're just cutting between the two. And it's better to make small cuts rather than going in and trying to remove that whole piece at once, especially towards the ends here. The ends can really chip off if you're not too careful. So just small taps at the end, and what you can do actually at the very end, you can just use a straight knife just to clean it up. Again, if I were to really try to hammer on it with the mallet and this chisel, I might tear off that end, and then I have to adjust the whole design. After thinning out the inside of the bowl, I've flipped it over, and I've just I'm making this a little bit quarter inch thickness around the ends of the bowls here. So I've drawn my line all the way around and taken my number 3 gouge, and I'm just taking off that end to the thickness that I want it to be. So I've thinned out the edges of the tray here on both sides. Now I'm going to flip it back over, and what I've noticed is that this line here that we originally have drawn on is quite straight, and there's no movement to it. So what I've done is I've moved this up about 1/8 of an inch, and it's going to start flat from here and then work its way here, and then 1/8 of an inch from the center, and then back into this line here. Excuse me. What it actually does is just give you a little bit more movement to the bowl itself. You can see I've already carved that other side, it already looks nicer to my eye. It's a little bit more pleasing. It's not so straight across. And when you find that you're doing things in sort of Northwest Coast style, the movement in the wood and the shapes, there's always some kind of movement. I've been told that there's no straight lines in Northwest Coast art, and so what I've done here is just move that line up so that it's not straight across, and then I've taken my number 8 L30 and I've gone along this line here, and I've worked from this side up to this. As I was taking out the center here, I wanted to get the tray a little bit lower. I found that it was pretty thick in this area here, just along the side where the sides are. So what I ended up doing is adjusting the bottom. And some projects you need to adjust as you go along because some things may not work out. And with this one, I found the bottom was a little bit too long, so I've actually narrowed it down an extra ½ inch on either side. And that way it took a little bit of more of the wood out here, so that this piece right in here could be a little bit thinner. And I'm going to still work on that as well, taking that down a bit more. Kind of looking at maybe 1/4 inch thickness all the way through the whole project. Maybe even under here. We'll go underneath here a little bit, maybe with some bent knives. You just want a nice light tray in the end, and something that's even all the way across. So when you're evening out your project, make sure that it's even thickness throughout the whole project. Anywhere it's a little bit more thicker, as you're taking out carving out your bowl shape, it creates stress where it's a little bit thicker as opposed to being thin. So if it's thick over here and thin right here, it causes stress right in here. And what will happen usually is this end piece will start opening up, will start cracking, just because of the tension that's you put into the shape of the wood and the shape of the carving. So I'm going to thin it out a little bit more, give it a little bit more even shape to it, and then we can start cleaning it up. It's a quick little project, a fun little project. Really, it's just building on the tools that you've been introduced to the other woodwork projects, and you're starting to play with the different shapes and using your knife and building your knife skills. That's what all these projects are really designed for, is to feel comfortable with all the tools that you're going to go to. So we're going to get that thinned out a little bit more. We'll probably move to maybe some bent knives to start shaping out the back here and the sides here. You can see it has a really nice sort of bevel shape to it here. And then this piece here it has a nice shape as well, and you just want to start cleaning that up. I'm debating whether to bring this side in now ½ inch as well, but we'll see how it goes when I start cleaning it up and see what I think as far as how it looks. So we'll start doing that now.